An anchorite is similar to a hermit. In fact, the distinction between them is blurry. An anchorite is isolated from society for intense prayer or to focus on the Eucharist. This person spends their time in a small cell that is anchored to a church. Also, an anchorite must take a vow of stability of place and partake in a religious rite similar to a funeral. A funeral format is appropriate since the person is considered dead to the world or a living saint. The earliest recorded anchorites lived in the 3rd century. They were found in England. One of the first declared founders was Hilarion in Palestine. They were believed to be a product of local monasteries by monks who were isolated through their silence. Anchorites have been around since ancient times. They are believed to evolve from the desert fathers and mothers who were the earliest Christian solitaries. These religious men and women who became anchorites were inspired to seek a life of solitude. They were motivated by the belief that spiritual fulfillment can be achieved by rejecting the strains, nuisances, and expectations of society. While in the isolated world, they would focus on penance and prayer. It is suggested that this vocation was founded on 4 key ideals: comparative, solitude, chastity, and orthodoxy. The place where they dwelled was called an anchorite cell or an anchor hold, which was attached to the church. However, there were windows in this cell. One window was used to see into the church and to receive sacraments. The other window was used as a door for the handmaiden to access the anchorite to provide necessary materials and care to this individual. The last window was a view for the world and usually covered with a curtain. It was through this window the locals would come for counsel or guidance from this anchorite. In order for an anchorite to start the process of formation, a bishop must grant permission to enter this way of life. There was a specific process the bishop needed to follow. First, the person has to declare the person physically fit for the lifestyle, sometimes requiring a probationary period before a final enclosure was made. There is also needed to be the determination that there was an adequate financial support to the lifestyle of the anchorite. There also had to be a suitable location for an anchor lot. One of the individual agreed to be part of the ceremony. The last step was the bishop agreed to oversee the well-being of the anchorite. One of the most famous anchorites was Julian of Norwich. She was on her deathbed when her priest held a crucifix in front of her. For hours she heard Jesus talking to her and watched him suffer. This experience had such a great profound effect on her that she asked the bishop to enclose her in an anchor hold built next to St. Julian Church in Norwich, England. It was here that she continued to attend Mass and counsel and prayer for people who came to her window. She lived in the cell for 60 years and was known as Mother Julian. It is believed that she was the first woman to write a book in English. However, she never signed her work. Her writing a religious view differing greatly from the beliefs of her time. She wrote of happiness, freedom, intimacy, and cosmic hope, not of hope, shame, worry, guilt, or fear of God. Another unusual fact about Mother Julian, since she never used her name, she was named after the church St. Julian that her anchor hold was attached to. Her ultimate message was, God is love, and that all shall be well, and that we should forgive ourselves and not beat ourselves up. Other items I found interesting about Anchoritism was anchorites were not allowed to keep valuables in their cells. Some of the anchor holds also function as banks, post offices, schoolhouses, shops, or the local newspaper. Last, when an Anchorite would die, the person would be buried in their cell.